David, a middle-aged security guard working at a large shopping mall, was used to a routine life. His days were filled with watching over the busy crowds, ensuring everyone stayed safe. But one day, something changed. While going about his usual tasks, he stumbled upon a little girl who had lost her parents in the crowd. He didn't know it at the time, but helping this child would lead to something far more extraordinary than he could have ever imagined. What began as a simple act of kindness would set the stage for a life-changing event just hours later. Hi everyone, welcome to Mystic Tales. Today I'm excited to share a new story with you. David had been working as a security guard for nearly 8 years. Every day felt the same. The buzzing of the mall was a constant hum in the background of his life. He would stand for hours, keeping an eye on shoppers, making sure no trouble arose. David had always been a simple man. He wasn't chasing glory, wealth, or fame. He just wanted a stable job to support his family. He'd often think about how his life had turned out. Once he had big dreams, maybe something more exciting, more adventurous. But those dreams faded as reality took over. His wife, Linda, and their 2 kids meant the world to him, and keeping them safe and cared for was his top priority. It wasn't that he was unhappy, he just didn't think life had much more in store for him. One particular Tuesday afternoon felt no different from the others. He stood by the mall's main entrance, scanning the crowds. People rushed in and out with bags of purchases. Families wandered from store to store, and the sound of children laughing echoed through the space. But amid all the noise, David noticed something unusual. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6 years old, was standing near the escalators. Alone. She looked scared, her eyes wide as she turned in every direction, searching for someone. David's instincts kicked in. He approached her slowly, making sure not to frighten her. "Hey there," he said softly, crouching down to her level. "Are you okay? Where's your mom and dad?" The girl's lip trembled, and tears began to well up in her eyes. I don't know," she whispered. "I lost them." David could feel her fear. It reminded him of his own kids when they were that age, so small and vulnerable. Without hesitation, he took her hand gently. "Don't worry, we'll find them," he said. "What's your name?" "Alice," she replied in a shaky voice. "All right, Alice. Let's go to the security office, and we'll get you some help." As they walked through the busy corridors, David couldn't help but notice how many people were too absorbed in their own worlds to see the scared little girl. He held her hand firmly, guiding her through the crowd, determined to reunite her with her family. Once they reached the security office, David contacted the mall's front desk and made an announcement. "Attention all shoppers. We have a lost child. If you are missing a little girl named Alice, please come to the security office immediately." While they waited, David kept Alice company. He brought her a juice box from the vending machine and even let her play with a small, stuffed bear he had on his desk. Slowly, she began to relax, her earlier panic fading. After what felt like an eternity, a frantic couple rushed into the office. Alice's mother, with tears streaming down her face, scooped her up in her arms. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We were so scared." David nodded, relieved that Alice was back with her parents. "I'm just glad she's safe," he replied with a warm smile. But what David didn't know was that this simple act of kindness would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. Later that evening, as David prepared to clock out, he reflected on the day. Helping Alice had reminded him of why he took the job in the first place. It wasn't about just standing around or keeping order. It was about helping people, making sure everyone felt safe. And today, that simple act of guiding a lost child back to her parents had given him a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in a long time. As he reached for his coat and bag, his supervisor, Mr. Harper, walked in. He was a stern man, always focused on the rules and rarely showed much emotion. David figured it was just another routine end-of-shift check-in. "David," Mr. Harper said, pausing as if he had something important on his mind. "I heard about what happened today. With the little girl." David straightened up, not sure where the conversation was going. "Yes, sir. She was lost, but we managed to get her back to her parents safely." Mr. Harper nodded, but there was something different in his expression this time. It was good work. You handled it well, with care. David was a bit taken aback. Compliments were rare in this line of work, especially from Mr. Harper. Thank you, sir. I just did what anyone would have done. No, not everyone would have been that attentive or kind. I've been thinking about you, David Harper continued, his voice softer than usual. You've been with us for a long time. Always reliable, always doing your job with a calm head. David wasn't quite sure what to say. He had never expected anything more than a steady paycheck from his job. I appreciate that, sir. I try my best. Mr. Harper took a deep breath and pulled something out of his pocket. It was an envelope. I've spoken with upper management. There's an opening for a senior position in the security team, and I recommended you for it. David's eyes widened. A promotion? He hadn't even thought about moving up the ranks. He had always assumed he'd just stay in his current role until retirement. Sir, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything right now. Just think it over, Mr. Harper said, handing him the envelope. Inside is the official offer. Take your time and read it at home. I think you'll find it's a significant step up, both in responsibility and pay. David was speechless. The offer was completely unexpected, and all he could think about was how helping Alice earlier that day had somehow set this entire thing in motion. Thank you, sir. I'll definitely take a look. As Mr. Harper left, David stood there for a moment, staring at the envelope in his hands. His mind raced. Was this really happening? He thought about his family, about how this could help them in ways he hadn't even considered before. The promotion wasn't just about more money. It was about stability, the ability to provide better opportunities for his kids, and a way to finally feel like he was moving forward in life. He left the mall that night with a strange mix of emotions. Gratitude, disbelief, and excitement swirled together. All he had done was help a lost child, something he thought was just part of his duty. But now, it seemed that one small act of kindness was opening doors he never expected. As he drove home, the envelope sat on the passenger seat next to him. A symbol of how quickly life can change in the most unexpected ways. When David arrived home that evening, his wife, Linda, greeted him at the door. She could sense something different in his demeanor. He looked a bit dazed, as if he was still processing something. Long day? She asked, noticing the way he was holding the envelope tightly in his hand. Yeah. You could say that, David replied with a faint smile. They sat down at the kitchen table after the kids had gone to bed, and David finally opened up about what had happened. He told her everything. How he had helped a lost child at the mall, the conversation with Mr. Harper, and finally, the unexpected promotion offer. Linda's eyes widened as she listened. A promotion? That's incredible, David. I'm so proud of you. David nodded, still trying to wrap his mind around it all. It's just so sudden. I never imagined something like this happening. I mean, it's not like I've been aiming for a higher position. I've always just done my job. Linda smiled warmly, reaching out to hold his hand. That's exactly why you're being recognized, David. You do your job, and you do it well. And today you went above and beyond for that little girl. David looked down at the envelope in front of him. I haven't even opened it yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Open it, Linda said softly. Let's see what this new opportunity looks like. With a deep breath, David carefully tore open the envelope and pulled out the letter. As he read through it, his eyes scanned the words: Senior Security Supervisor, increased responsibilities, significant salary raise, benefits package. It was all laid out in front of him, and as he read, the reality of it began to sink in. Linda leaned over to read along with him, her smile growing wider. This is amazing, David. This is exactly what we've needed. David nodded slowly, the weight of the offer beginning to settle in his mind. It was more than he could have hoped for. A real chance to improve his family's financial situation, to give them a better life. And, all because of a single act of kindness. A moment that had seemed so small and routine at the time. "I just can't believe it," David said quietly. "All I did was help a little girl find her parents." Linda squeezed his hand gently. "That's the thing about life. Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest difference. You never know when a moment of kindness will come back to you in ways you never expected." They sat there together for a while, both of them realizing how much this could change things for their family. David's thoughts drifted back to Alice. The lost little girl, her tearful eyes, and the way she had held his hand as they walked through the mall. He couldn't help but wonder, did that simple moment really lead to this? Or was it something bigger, something beyond his understanding? But one thing was clear. The ripple effect of his actions had started something new in his life, and now he had a decision to make. The next few days were filled with a whirlwind of thoughts for David. He couldn't stop thinking about the promotion offer, how unexpected it had been, and how it could change everything for his family. But there was also a bit of hesitation. With the promotion came more responsibility, longer hours, more pressure. Was he ready for that? On his next shift, he found himself back at the mall, standing in his usual spot. The familiar routine had a comforting rhythm to it, but now it felt different. Like something had shifted. He kept thinking about Alice, the way she had looked so small and scared in the sea of people. And how that moment had set off a chain of events that he could never have predicted. Midway through his shift, something caught his eye. At the far end of the mall, near the entrance, a familiar figure appeared. It was Alice, and beside her were her parents. They were walking toward him with smiles on their faces, and Alice was holding something in her hands. As they approached, Alice's mother spoke first. "David, we wanted to come back and thank you again. You really saved us that day." David smiled warmly, feeling a bit embarrassed by the praise. "I was just doing my job. I'm just glad Alice is okay." Alice's father stepped forward and nodded. "It wasn't just about finding her. You showed such kindness, such care. We've been thinking about it ever since." David glanced down at Alice, who was still holding the small package. She looked up at him with bright eyes. "We made this for you," she said softly, extending the gift toward him. David accepted the package, surprised by the gesture. It was a small, neatly wrapped box, tied with a ribbon. "Thank you. But you didn't have to do this," he said, looking at Alice's parents. Alice's mother smiled. "We wanted to. It's a token of our gratitude." Curious, David carefully untied the ribbon and opened the box. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a small hand-painted figurine. It was a security guard, standing tall with a protective stance, and in his hand was a tiny child, holding on to him just like Alice had held on to David that day. The details were simple, but the meaning behind it was powerful. David was speechless for a moment, his throat tightening as he looked at the figurine. "This is beautiful. I don't know what to say." Alice's father nodded. "We just wanted you to know how much that moment meant to us. It wasn't just about finding our daughter. It was about the kindness you showed. We'll never forget it." David smiled, his heart full. "Thank you. This really means a lot to me." As they said their goodbyes and walked away, David stood there for a moment, holding the small figurine in his hands. It was a reminder of how powerful a simple act of kindness could be, and as he looked at the tiny figure of the security guard, he realized something. Maybe this promotion wasn't just a job offer. Maybe it was the universe's way of telling him that he was ready for something more, something bigger. Suddenly, the doubts he had been carrying began to fade. He had been holding on to the comfort of his routine, but now he saw that sometimes, stepping into the unknown could lead to something even greater. David placed the figurine carefully into his bag and stood up straighter, a new sense of purpose settling over him. The decision had been made. The next morning, David made his way to the security office with a clear mind. He had thought long and hard about the promotion, and now, he was ready to give his answer. As he entered the office, Mr. Harper was already there, reviewing some reports. He looked up when David walked in. "David, Good to see you. Have you had a chance to think about the offer?" Mr. Harper asked, his usual serious tone softened with curiosity. David nodded confidently. "Yes, sir, I have. And I'd like to accept the promotion." Mr. Harper's face broke into a rare smile. "Good decision, David. I knew you were the right person for the job." David couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swell in his chest. This wasn't just a promotion, it was a new chapter in his life. A chance to grow, to take on more responsibility, and to provide even better for his family. "Thank you for believing in me," David said quietly. "I won't let you down." Mr. Harper nodded, handing David a folder with all the details of his new role. "I have no doubt you'll do great. You've always been dependable, and now you'll have the opportunity to lead." As David walked out of the office, a sense of accomplishment washed over him. He felt lighter, more optimistic about the future. The worries that had once weighed him down seemed distant now. And as he thought about how everything had unfolded, he couldn't help but reflect on the power of kindness. How one small, seemingly insignificant act had completely changed his life. A few weeks later, David settled into his new role as senior security supervisor. The job came with more responsibilities, but he found that he enjoyed the challenge. His confidence grew, and so did his ability to manage the team. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that he was making a difference not just in his own life but in the lives of those around him. One evening, as he stood by the main entrance of the mall, overseeing the bustling crowd, he noticed a familiar face in the distance. It was Alice, walking hand in hand with her parents once again. She waved at him, her smile wide and full of joy. David waved back, his heart warm. In that moment, he realized something important. Life had a way of giving back to those who gave with an open heart. He hadn't expected a promotion or a raise when he helped Alice. He had simply wanted to do the right thing. But sometimes, the universe works in mysterious ways, rewarding those who least expect it. As the mall continued its usual rhythm around him, David stood quietly, filled with gratitude. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. But now, he was ready for whatever came next. And he knew, deep down, that kindness had the power to change lives. Loved this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Mystic Tales for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments.